What's up, y'all? Back in the garage with ye ol' Ozark Trail G1 Explorer. This is video number 2 on this bike. Now that I've put 100 miles on it, I'm going to talk about what I think about it. The first video is more of like an unboxing video and just like commentary on like how it was assembled wrong. So for this video, I've kind of got 3 things I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about how I adjusted the bike to fix all the assembly issues. I'm going to talk about first impressions. Like the first time I rode this bike, I wrote everything down. And then the last thing I want to talk about is kind of just more mature impressions now that I've put like some miles on it. As you can see by like the mud and the accessories, your boy's been riding this thing, which is big for me because I never really rode bikes before. So it's fun. I like it. So yeah, let's talk about those 3 things. Okay, so in my first video, I was surprised by how many things were wrong with the bike, with my brand new bike that I just bought. But now that it's been some time, it really wasn't that bad to get it into working condition. It basically boiled down to 2 things. The brakes were out of adjustment and the gears were out of adjustment. And that's not that bad because you don't have to replace parts. You don't have to buy anything. All you have to do is just tweak stuff. Just turn bolts to tighten or loosen things. And if you're patient, you can do it yourself and it costs $0. And if you're not patient or if you don't have the tools, you can just take it to a bike shop and pay them realistically $100, and they should be able to get your front brakes, and rear derailleur tuned so that it's working perfectly. So I did it all myself. I tightened the brakes because they were just so loose. I aligned the calipers and I tuned the rear derailleur because I wasn't getting the tallest or the shortest gear. It was really like stuck, and it was like kind of like clicking in between gears. But I did all that, and I'm pretty experienced with bikes. That took me like an afternoon. So if my first video scared you off for how many things were wrong with it, it really wasn't a big deal at the end of the day. So I just wanted to say that I made the bike look a little bad in the first video, and at the end of the day, it really wasn't that bad. I spent $0 getting this bike in working condition. So let's hit the road. All right, here we are on the road on the Ozark Trail. First POV riding shot. I've got 3 different first impression items that I want to talk about, and I've got clips of me riding on 3 different types of terrain. We got road here, we've got gravel, and we've got dirt, actually. So I'll kind of talk about each one in the section that it applies to most. But my first thought, right when I got on this bike and I started riding it down the road, I was like, dang, this thing's fast. And I think the reason that I thought that is because I've always ridden mountain bikes with front suspension. And now that I'm riding this bike with a rigid front fork, like for the first time ever, I realized that you can put the power down so much better. And I'm not talking about like racing speeds. I'm just talking about getting down the street. I didn't really realize how much of the power is getting soaked up by the front suspension travel. So kind of my thought here is, unless you're buying a bike with the intention of riding on mountain bike trails, I would kind of lean towards getting something like this with a rigid front fork. Unless you want to jump or go down really rocky, rooty trails, if you're riding the bike around the city or just grinding gravel roads, it's really kind of hard to beat. Like, I feel like I'm going so much faster, and that makes riding so much more fun because I'm just seeing more stuff. And I feel like my energy is getting put to use better. So that was kind of my first initial thought. So kind of in the clip here, this is perfect timing. I'm pulling into the gravel entrance of the park. So we'll cut over to that and I'll kind of talk about the next thing. So it's a gravel bike, and here we are on a gravel road. I'm pretty lucky in the sense that I have a whole bunch of these gravel roads right in my backyard. I don't need to load up the bike or anything. So that was kind of what caused me to buy this specific bike rather than like I think it's Ozark Trail Ridge is their mountain bike offering. But yeah, so on these gravel roads, something I noticed, pretty good build quality. When you're riding on gravel, you're shaking it. I've even taken it down mountain bike trails. There's no suspension on this bike. I mean, it's getting shook to death, basically. I'm riding it pretty hard. And I haven't had any bolts back out on me. I haven't had anything go out of adjustment once I set it. So, shout out to Walmart. This is a pretty solid piece of equipment that they're selling for an even more solid price. I mean, really, like, the value here, hard to beat. The tires are 40 millimeters wide and they're pretty grippy. They got like knobs on them, so that you are pretty confident if it gets like loose or if it gets wet. But they're not like mountain bike knobs where they're super aggressive. You can still roll smooth on pavement and they'll still grip on gravel. So the tires are super nice. If I have to get a new set, I'm not really planning on changing them. I'd probably just go ahead and buy the same ones that they put on the bike. I think the width is a good width. I maybe would want to go a little wider, but that's just because I'm used to mountain bikes. I don't think I'm used to skinny tire bikes yet. But they're definitely a lot wider than something you would find on, like, I don't know, your standard road bike. And kind of final thought about gravel specific stuff. The bike's geared really well. It's got the 2x in the front, which I didn't love at first. I thought like 1x was king, but I find myself on the larger front cog most of the time, like when it's flat, when it's downhill, or even like slight uphill. And then I drop it down to the smaller front cog when it gets steep. And these hills back here get steep. I look at my Strava maps, and I mean, I see up to like 25% incline. It could maybe use like an easier gear for the intense stuff, but I never really find myself looking for another one. So, geared pretty well, can't complain. Good build quality, tires are grippy. I haven't had any sketchy moments on this bike. So, that was road. This is gravel. I'm going to cut over to a dirt clip, and I've got one thing to say about riding on dirt. Okay, so here we are on a dirt path. I would call it a mountain bike path, not because it's like got features like berms and like jumps and stuff, but I would say a mountain bike is the go-to bike for this path just because it's not very well worn in. It's just like a small connector between like two trails in the park. It kind of like hugs the highway, like you can see on the left. And it's rocky, it's rooty, it's got like stumps and like fallen trees you got to get over. And I'm pretty experienced on bikes. I ride dirt bikes. I used to ride mountain bikes. I felt uncomfortable on this trail, on this bike, and I think it's because of two reasons. First reason being the rigid front fork. There's no suspension travel. That is what it is, you know. But I don't think that's the main reason I felt uncomfortable. I think the main reason is honestly the bars. I'm gonna cut to a clip of me in the garage really quick, kind of showing what the issue is. Okay, I don't have a mountain bike anymore, so I'll be using this dirt bike as an example. This is also a project that I'm working on that I'll be making some content about on this channel. So if you want to figure out what that is and why it's in a dirt bike, like and subscribe. But to the point I was talking about earlier, when I'm on a mountain bike, I like to have my hands on the bars. I like to have one finger over the brake. So when you're going down rough, rooty stuff, and maybe like something surprises you and you need to like suddenly stop, you don't have to like think and like change your hand position. You can just kind of have that finger on there and modulate it. That is not the case with these. Okay, so you're riding down the mountain bike trail. You're on the hoods because that's where it feels the most secure. This looks like a good setup, but really no braking is happening here. This is the full range of braking motion. When you're on the hoods and you've got a finger on the brake lever, this ain't stopping you. If you have to suddenly stop because it takes a turn or there's like a log falling that you can't get over, you're going to have to like let go and lose all your control in a sketchy moment to really get your hands on and squeeze the brakes. So it really shouldn't come as any surprise that this bike isn't the best for off-roading.
if you want to get a bike where you can hit some trails every now and then, you should probably consider one with front suspension. Maybe look at the I forget the name of the mountain bike that Walmart has. But if you're doing anything else and you don't mind staying on paved road or gravel or even just the occasional dirt connector, this bike can handle it. So I check the directions. I see I'm barely down this hill, so I just yeet, sick U-turn, and I go back up.
Okay, so those are my thoughts on the bike. To wrap it up, would I recommend the bike? Absolutely. Easy recommendation for anybody who wants to get into cycling. So if you're cross shopping this bike against anything else and you came to this video to see what I have to say about it, I say add it to the cart, buy it right now. I mean, you're not going to get a better value anywhere. Maybe you'll get lucky on the used market. You can get into like some better like componentry. But if you're just getting into it, I don't really think there's a need to drop more than $250 on a brand new bike. There's one thing about the bike that would maybe stop me from recommending it to someone who like doesn't have any experience with bikes. And I think the drop handlebars, they definitely took a little bit of getting used to for me. So if you've kind of like never ridden a bike before, I would say try to get a bike with regular handlebars, more upright seating position, easier to control. But if you're like most people and you rode a bike when you were a kid, even if you haven't ridden one in a really long time, it'll take a little bit of getting used to for the drop bars, but after a day or two, you'll be good. So can't say enough good things about this bike. I've been having a ball riding it. I used to ride a bike just like around the neighborhood and down some trails for fun. Ever since I got this, all I can think about is where I'm going to ride it next. So if you made it this far in the video and it helped you out, shoot me a like. That helps me out. And if you want to see what else I got cooking in the garage, shoot me a subscribe because got a lot of projects going on. And I'm just starting to get used to this YouTube filming along the way stuff. But I'm building some pretty cool stuff. I'm looking off camera and I'm just excited about all the projects I got going on. I'm going to try to be really good about filming along the way, explaining what I'm seeing and what I'm doing. So if you're interested in bicycles, dirt bikes, motorcycles, electric bikes, hint, hint, scooters, mopeds, anything with two wheels, I probably own one and I'm probably modifying it. So subscribe if you're interested and thanks for watching.